All of the scars, they won't heal from it. They don't deserve it. Whoa, I wish you strength to walk away. Ooh, so you gotta lift up before your 6 feet below. Say no to IPV.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome to this conversation today. I'm happy to see everyone, and I'm looking forward to an amazing conversation. Please, as you are joining, kindly type in the chat room where you are joining us from and how you are feeling in this moment, and perhaps your favorite color. Let it be rainbow, of course. So we're going to continue our conversation from where we stopped the last time. It's the Bruises Don't Always Show. And this time around, we're going to look at fear, stigma, and survivor, exploring how criminalization, shame, and social isolation shape queer relationships and impact survivors. Of course, this is still a continuation from Odi Agev's Ordizo, aka Ordizo's research, and as research finding, the book, the report, and the music album all put together. I welcome you once again. And quickly, I would love to welcome Ade into our midst to grant us. But before then, I would like to say Ade is an executive coach, group facilitator, and organizational consultant whose work sits at the intersection of relational courage, belonging, and the lifelong practice of returning to wholeness. To read more about his work, his impact, and how you can contact him, I will share his website in the chat room for all of us to look at. And once again, Ordizo, yes, this time around, I'm so happy that I'm correcting myself. In the first recording, I said Odi or Ordizo. The correct pronunciation is Odi and Ordizo. Is an independent consultant, researcher, and human rights advocate, singer, and virtual storyteller who conducts Bruises Don't Always Show interdisciplinary research that we are talking about again, that we're doing part 2 of. I'm still going to share his website in the link for you to be able to download the book, the report, and have access to his music album in all online platforms. Of course, your wholesome self, Moon Goddess, your wholesome host, Moon Goddess, is in the house. I'm a restorative healing researcher and practitioner. Of course, a holistic well-being consultant as well. I'm going to share more about myself in the link I'll produce. And the platform in which we are today is Imole of Africa Center, a restorative healing institute. The website to know more about our work on how we're transforming intergenerational and collective trauma will be made available to you as well to engage with if you want to learn more. Please let me know how you are feeling in the chat room, like I said. Thank you so much for who I have shared. I will give the room to Ade to grant us in this conversation as he acknowledges what you've shared and take us on this journey of grounding. Over to you, Ade.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Looking forward to the conversation that will be had today. But before we move into the conversation, it would be nice to settle and welcome ourselves, welcome each other, welcome the seen, the unseen, the known, and the unknown. So to start off with, I'm going to invite you to have a look around the space that you're in right now. If you're in a room, if you're outdoors, simply just have a look around and allow yourself to take in the space. Very often we move through spaces, but how often do we actually pause to take in the space? And as you're looking around, I invite you to look for things that you've not necessarily paid attention to today. Like allow yourself to be surprised. So I've just seen something on the shelf and I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that was there. So keep looking and allow yourself to be surprised. Turn around if you're able to, taking everything in, and then gently bring yourself back to your screen. And now I'm going to invite you to, if you're able to stretch, bringing your arms out to the side. Just allow yourself to stretch out. And if you're able to, give a sigh as well. Just allow yourself to stretch, move that body. What does your body need right now? Just if you need to move your shoulders, your fingers, taking it all in, and then gently bringing that to a pause. And then now, invite you to either lower your gaze or if you feel comfortable, close your eyes and allow yourself to connect with your body this time. You're going to go inwards. So really feel into your body. How is your body doing right now? Connecting with your feet, your legs, the thighs, the buttocks, the abdomen, the chest, the arms, and other parts of your body. Simply connect with your body. You don't need to change anything. And now I'm going to invite you to place one of your hands on a part of your body that could do with some compassion right now. A part of your body that you feel, you want to pay attention to. Maybe it could do with some compassion, some tenderness. And allow your hand to rest there. And as you do that, we acknowledge each other. We acknowledge our ancestors. And we acknowledge those that will come after us. We acknowledge the seen and the unseen, the known and the unknown. And as we acknowledge all of that, we honor the conversation that we're about to have. With insights, with wisdom, with healing and love, not just for ourselves, but for each other. Now bring your gaze back to the screen. Oh, thank you. Toyin, over to you.
So much. I'm still digesting the delicious grounding, the experience. Thank you so much. I'm still welcoming people who are joining us just now. Please, in the chat room is sharing with us where you're joining us from, how you're feeling in the moment, and what color resonates with you the most. I remember that I don't like using not like I don't like, I usually don't say favorite in this situation. Thank you so much, Ade. I want to kindly tell us, as our care culture, to please be present, be nurturing and kind towards ourselves. Please hydrate and just be gentle with yourself as we continue this conversation. If anything comes up for you that you don't feel comfortable with and you like to share with someone, please you can reach out to iAfrica or a friend or a community of support or somebody who supports you through your well-being. I'm going to share our email address as well in the link. Hi, once again, Odi. Are you ready to continue this conversation?
Hi. Yeah. Let's get into it.
Okay. Thank you so much. I will just dive right into our first question for today. In part one, I recall that we explore how harm often arrives quietly, and you touch briefly on why many survivors find themselves unable to live. I would love us to stay with that for a little longer. From your research, what makes it so difficult for people to recognize, name, or leave harmful relationships?
Mm. Um, yeah, thank you for having me again for this conversation and thanks everyone for also joining us today. I think I would one of the misconceptions about IPV or abusive relationships is that sometimes people stay because they don't recognize harm or it's because they lack the strength to leave. But what the research showed to us was much more complex than that. And this is because abuse rarely begins with abuse. Like it often begins with trust. You know, you trust someone, there's affection, there's the feeling of finally being seen. And to be honest, that's why the music EP also started with Off Guard to kind of start off that conversation because sometimes it catches you off guard. Like most people enter that relationship with the mindset of being hoping to love and to be loved and not expecting to be harmed at all. And then emotional abuse just develops gradually, and people sometimes adopt to this little by little, like they begin questioning themselves instead of questioning the relationship. I heard people share how they were starting to explain their own behaviors, like hoping things would improve, like because the person they are dealing with is somebody that you're in love with, that's kind of also difficult. Yeah, and then
Mm.
there's also the practical realities of survivors who are financially dependent on their partners. And there's lots of people who are also dealing with lots of other situations like fear of losing your housing, losing your employment, losing community, or sometimes the only person that your partner, I shared this in the last conversation as well, that the partner sometimes is the one person who knows you and accepts your identity, especially for queer people who have left homes to bigger cities to find
Yes.
to start all over, be anonymous, like just a fresh start. Sometimes that's partner is the only person who knows your identity and the fear of outing and just codependency. And so living sometimes is not as simple as it seems, and it can feel like you are risking everything that gives your life stability. But I think
Yes.
that it's important that we need to stop asking why people stayed, and instead of asking that, we can also reflect on what are the situations that made living feel impossible. And I think that kind of invites compassion rather than judgment. And for me, I think that that's where healing
Mm.
can also begin for, survivors.
Thank you so much. I love how you have landed, especially not the why are you staying?
Mm.
Why haven't you left? But the condition that made living impossible. Because what you're saying is it's not like some don't know that this had
Mhm.
moved from loving and being safe in this space to now I am terrified, there is fear, there is all of these things going on. But the condition that made it difficult for people to
Mm.
live. And that leads to the second question. around fear, criminalization, and survivor. Because I remember that we've touched on this even in the first conversation around the your partner even threatening you that if you leave, I'm going to reveal your identity. I'm going to tell people that you are queer, and that the fear of the unknown as well, because you are with this person, which could, be around shame of what will people even say or think. But without explaining this further, I just want to go back to one of the strongest findings from your research, which was how fear shapes survivors' decisions. Fear of exposure, criminalization, stigma, social isolation, and shame. So, in which of these stood out most strongly in your conversation with participants? And how do these broader systems of oppression begin to reproduce themselves within queer relationships and communities? I know some of this seems repetitive, but I think
Yeah.
it's fair for us to kind of retreat. Yeah.
Yeah. Without even thinking much about that, I think that the strongest thread that stood through the research was fear, but it wasn't one type of fear. It wasn't one single fear. It was like many layers of fear existing at the same time for people. And you mentioned some of those, like people feared being outed, the fear of losing family. Like I also mentioned, sometimes the fear of losing house and employment, and sometimes community. And there's also um the fear of not believed when you share your experiences, right? Like that is also something that came out very strongly. And also, yeah, sometimes the fear that you are reinforcing the harmful stereotypes about LGBTIQ
Mm,
relationships, right?
mm,
And like
mm,
people have generalized and said that these are the kind of experiences that happen within queer relationships. And so when you share those stories, it feels like you are reinforcing those harmful stereotypes. And of course, we know that in Nigeria, where same-sex relationships are criminalized, and stigma has remained widespread. It almost feels like seeking help
mm,
can also become as risky as staying in that abusive relationship. And but one thing that became clear was that criminalization itself, it's not what is causing intimate partner violence. It then means that people can be abusive in any kind of relationship they find themselves, or you can be experience abuse in any kind of relationship. However, what criminalization does is that it changes that environment in which um, abuse happens, because it's limiting what choices survivors have. It's limiting the support systems that are available. It's limiting the courage or the support that is available when you even speak up or report. And so sometimes silence starts to feel like a safer option, and
mm,
and and you choose to stay silent and go through it hoping that things will change. But I think that the systems of oppression also don't necessarily stay outside of our relationships, because they find ways into the relationship. What I'm trying to say here is that as human beings who are living in a society as queer people, when we've experienced rejection, you've experienced surveillance, like people checking over you, checking your phone, checking your whereabouts, control also from society. Sometimes those oppressive patterns that we experience in societies can also surface within our relationships. And and that's, I'm not saying that that is an excuse for abusive behavior. I'm just saying that we also kind of mirror some of those oppressions that we experience from the larger society. Sometimes we kind of also experience mirror that in relationships, in our intimate
yeah.
partner, in intimate relationships. But I think it's helpful to understand that that is why healing is also important for us, as both at individual levels and at community levels, because if we want survivors to be able to speak, to be able to share their experiences, to be able to seek support for the experiences that they experience, then we also means that we need to also create environments where speaking doesn't come with unbearable consequences, where people get like experience safety nets when they speak out, and have the support systems that they need when they share. Yeah.
Thank you so much for this. And as you are talking, something that jumps out for me is when silence seems like the safest option, that's really, that's touching. When you know that the environment you are is not supporting who you are, is criminalizing who you are. You are feeling unsafe already to be who you are in this society. That really compound the issue. And I remember in the first conversation too that you were talking about the importance of this conversation around the fact that this is a bit normalized to have conversation around gender-based violence within the heteronormative relationship. But when it comes to queer relationship, is something else, And you use the example of somebody saying, so you are a man and you say a man is beating, like the way it's even trivialized, the way it's not seen as a serious violation of somebody's dignity, essence, and the wounding that comes from that as well. So I know when we return, because we'll have like a short break now, I'm going to be playing one of Odi's songs that he made from these projects. And when we're doing that, or while we're doing that, I welcome you to go take a break for take water, stretch, utilize some of the healing tools that Ade shared with us today, and come back to the room or just be in the room while the music play. And then we continue the conversation as I have another important question to ask Odi.
Some nights I reach for my phone before I remember. I still miss your laugh at the wrong times. Like say my body no read the room, are they angry? Say I still miss you, are they angry? Say I miss myself too. I rehearse what I go say. If I see you overall, then I pray make I no see you at all. I hate you, but I miss you. And I hate myself for missing you. I define till your memory show. Then my chest begin shake slow. I dey hear your voice when nobody talk. I dey hide them inside, no place to talk 'em. I tell myself, say, you try your best. Then I remember how my body rests. I ask myself, how love done heavy, how something sweet, feel bruised, passing gently. I hate you, but I miss you. And I hate myself for missing you. I define till your memory show. Then my chest begin shake slow. Maybe not me too much, maybe not me too soft. Maybe if I calm down, if I know cause like this, I don't want you back. I just want peace.
Is it love? Is it hate? Is it peace? Is it war? I'm confused on how I feel, cause in my head I have it all. But it's better that I let you go and try to love myself, cause I'm lost. Maybe I should try to love myself. I never really knew I have to deal with all these stress, mixed feelings. In between I know they feel myself. Me do she vai ku amo pa shima nam shoga. Me do so we dik pa shima fan yoga. Unzule monyi omoka ku na joga mambu ayo. Shinim kumo ba nan yoga. My place of peace don't turn to war zone. Maybe I am better on my own.
I hate you, but I miss you, and I hate myself for missing you. I define, feel your memory show. Chest begin shake slow.
I do not do the regular.
Thank you for that. I hope you have had a moment with the music. I don't know whether to ask if you've enjoyed this or something had come up for you. You can let us know in the chat room as we continue this conversation. That piece of song ended with "I don't do the regular," but yes, but that that kind of takes me to, if we don't do the regular, but there is so much impact of heteronormativity in queer relationship, causing invisible harm or visible harm. And during our first conversation, Amari, who granted us and offered us community reflection, shared that something with us that still stays with me. They said one of the legacies of heteronormativity is the hierarchy that places romantic relationships above all other forms of connection. This creates higher risks of invisible harm, and it does not belong in queer households. So, ending this quotation, I would love to hear from you, your thoughts on that. To what extent do you think heteronormative ideas about relationships shaped what emerged in your research? Are we sometimes reproducing relationship models that were never designed to help us flourish? Over to you, Odi.
Absolutely. Amari's reflection in the first series was credibly, like, it was insightful because it helps us to examine not just our relationships, but like what are some of those ideas that we inherited about relationships. Because when we talk about heteronormativity, we're talking about some of those traditional scripts, those cultural norms that many of us grew up with, like the idea about power, for instance, like sacrifice, the idea of jealousy and how it plays in relationships, ownership sometimes, and gender roles, even, yeah, how
That's a big one for me, gender roles.
yeah. Who is supposed to
That
do
stuck out
this?
to me. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, the male should provide, the female should take care of the home and wash and clean and all of that and cook. And sometimes those kind of things shape how even queer people think of what love is supposed to look like. Because for many of us, especially many of our mothers, were taught that love meant enduring anything. It meant staying. It meant that sometimes it also meant that jealousy was proof of commitment. Like if your partner wasn't jealous of you, they don't care about you, they don't love you. Your relationship, your romantic relationship should also come before every other thing. Don't discuss things about us with other people. Like, those kind of things are place. Those are the kind of situations that also create room for abuse and intimate partner violence to kind of stem and grow, but also somehow that setting boundaries shows that you don't love enough. Like, why are you setting
Mm,
boundaries? Why are you saying no? We are in a relationship, like, it also still baffles me that marital rape is something that is not considered as something. For instance, if we're looking at that aspect, but this is not the conversation for today. But just to say that those kind of heteronormative ideas don't simply disappear because we are queer. Like because we grew up in the same society, we grew up in the same households as our heterosexual siblings and all of that. And so the same society shaped us, and sometimes subconsciously we reproduce those patterns even in our own relationships. But what I hope that we begin to imagine instead is that relationships shouldn't be measured, or love shouldn't be measured by how much of yourself you're willing to lose, right? Like it should be by how free you remain to be yourself. Like healthy love shouldn't be like it shouldn't be something that require you to become smaller in order for
mm,
relationships to survive. It should be something that you should thrive. It should be something that you should be a healthy relationship is a space where you are thriving as your own person and not minimizing your emotions or your feelings or not saying things because you want peace. And so I think that it's very important that yeah, it's difficult to strip ourselves from some of these heteronormative patterns, but I think that we can continue to try and we can thrive. But I think my landing statement is always around support systems. Like what are the support systems that can exist also, like even when you're beginning to lose yourself, who are those people who can help you keep you grounded to bring you back to that version of yourself that you were even before you started losing yourself in the relationship? That would be very helpful.
mm, yeah. Thank you so much. I was listening and I recognize a lot of things that we grew up normalizing. And you've mentioned some of that. That's where the issue of lack of boundaries, the issue of the harmful gender role, and the issue of who is the head or the neck or the tail in a
Who is
relationship.
the man,
Uh,
even in a
yeah,
same-sex relationship? Yeah.
yeah, and that goes with who provides, who doesn't. And it just seems to make relationship and loving unhealthy. And I think this part of some of the conversations I might have, oh no, not I might have, that I've had with Ade, and where we are talked about how we carry this with us, and these things lead to shame, leads to how we show up, and how even when self-abandonment is coming into how we see ourselves, we don't recognize it on time. And then because we've not being able to have a different way of seeing relationship, or
Mhm.
a kind of embodiment that honors both of the people, or the numbers of the people in relationship, and the way, of course, that heteronormativity kind of romanticize this kind of relationship as be all kind of thing.
Mm.
Friendship is not within the same square, is not within the same space as that. Is I think there's a lot I can say about that, but in order to let other people as well come in with their own reflection, and let Ade reflect with us, I would love to move into the second to the last question. And on
Mm.
this, I want us to look at the weight of shame. We've spoken about fear, and you said that that really came out strongly in your research as well. But I would like us to stay with shame for a moment, because I think shame often lives even longer than fear, but fear is part of it. It's not like I am prioritizing which emotion is stronger.
Mhm.
What does shame actually do to survivors? I don't know if you've had time to reflect and to look at how shame does shape the stories people tell about themselves, about abuse. And again, because we've talked about the role of communities before, I don't know if you still have anything to say in that kind of way where helping people to loosen the shame and grief begin from community support and allow
Yeah.
them to return to themselves.
Yeah, I think that fear and shame are related, but they are not necessarily the same. Um, I think that maybe fear would ask like, what will happen to me if I speak, right? But shame, it's more like, what does this say about me? Like, what do people feel about me? Like when they hear this. And I think that one of the most painful things I heard throughout the research was not just that what people had experienced, but it was what they were starting to believe about themselves because of the experiences that they went through. And this is something that came up also strongly in the lyrics of the song that you just played, where you're asking questions like maybe I'm too much, maybe I'm too sensitive, maybe I deserve all of this, right? Like you start to um victimize yourself for excuse for the behaviors of the other person. And over time, like the abuse have stopped becoming something that happened to you. It's becoming something that you are starting to believe as a reflection of who you are. Like it's because of who you are that you are experiencing these things. And that's what shame does. Like it just takes someone else's harmful behavior and it just starts to quietly convince us that we are the problem. And I think that even as queer people, generally, we're starting to kind of at some point in our lives, you start to say that you are the problem, and this is why your family doesn't like you, this is why society doesn't approve of you, and all of that. Like that is what shame does. And but I think that emotional abuse can also have lots of lasting effects. Like even after you've left a relationship, even after those internal stories, those experiences have left, like you still have those memories, those experiences, the trauma still remains. Even when the partner is no longer there, that voice of shame sometimes is there to continue that conversation in your head. And so for me, I think that that's where um healing would begin if those kind of stories in your head, like the shame, is interrupted. And for some people, they kind of go through therapy might be helpful. But for many people who also have not been able to access therapy, and because therapy is quite expensive and sometimes not even available as much as would love therapy to be, it's for people find it that healing through trusted friends. Some people it's through faith, through music, through art, and for some people it's through their community. But um at some point, it might just be one person saying to you that I believe you, that helps to kind of interrupt that trauma or that story that is remains in your head due to the shame and everything. It's someone saying to you that I believe you, like what happened to you wasn't your fault. Sometimes that's what people need to hear because people who experience IPV, they carry a lot of weight on them, especially the weight of the experiences, the trauma and everything. And so, but I think that this is also where community can also come in as well. I know that community cannot necessarily erase what happened, but what community can do is to help you remember who you were. Like I mentioned, who were you before you started experiencing this? Who were you before you started believing that you deserved this? Right, like so what are some of those community structures and systems? I remember I spoke about this in the last session as well, that more than 50% of the respondents for the research said they didn't know a trusted organization where they could find support, which was very worrisome to me because you would imagine that organizations were set up to kind of support the overall well-being of LGBTIQ persons. And so it's not just about sexual health, it's not about just HIV interventions, it's like all-round issues that are facing the community members. And so when people are losing trust in community organizations, that is something it's worrisome. But I think that one of the beautiful forms of care is not necessarily rescuing people, but it's just helping them gently to return to themselves, their real selves, their before harm crept in and they started losing themselves. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I saw that Regina raised her hand. Do you want to say something now or after this reflection?
I wanted to quickly touch on a few points. Do we have time?
Sorry?
Do we have time?
Yes, we do.
Okay. What Odi was saying about the shame. I once dated a lady, and it was this the shame was now bringing like internalized homophobia. So as we were dating, but in her mind, only when we're together alone. So once we get out, or maybe she's at work or something like that, even in the UK, she's always like, "Oh, don't come near me," or "I don't want
Mhm.
people to know." And sometimes I looked at it and I was like, maybe because I was so open with my sexuality and I received my shame and my guilt and everything the first like 20 years of my life. So I got to a point where I'm going to make my own family. I'm going to start
Mm.
over and I'm going to do me, regardless of what my parents feel about my sexuality. But then dating someone who was in a free country, but still had that shame of, oh, you know what? I have to be heteronormative when it suits everyone else, and then I can be gay with you. And I sat there and I thought to
Mm.
myself, because of our culture kind of gives you this. I mean, it took me over 20 years for me to get over my internalized homophobia. And
Mhm.
and sometimes you sit down and you look at yourself and you say, the conditioning, you know, in terms of Maslow's hierarchy of needs when you're younger, that it's either a man and woman or nothing else. It takes you like a whole lifetime to even get out of that
Mm.
before you
Mhm.
even come to your true self and think, you know what, as much as they think it's shameful, where am I standing in this paradigm?
Mm.
So I think you come to a self-realization where you think, you know what, let them do them and let me do me. But then you still have like, I have cousins who are like, oh, it's okay because you're gay because you're in our family. But other people, I just don't understand why they're gay. And in your
Yep.
mind, you're like,
Yep.
Yeah.
you know, it's
Mm.
okay because I've always, remained, this is who I am. I'm not going to
Yeah.
change. Your opinions are not going to wave me. And they just have to get on with it. It's either you see me and I'm with a partner that's for the same sex. And even when I had children, my dad kind of sat down and thought, "Oh yeah, you had the children with a man." And I kind of looked at him. I was like, "I did IVF." And then he kind of like, "Why did you waste all that money? £8,000. Why did you waste all that money? But you could have just slept with a man." And even at 77 and I'm 43, he's still sitting there going, "Oh well, at least you had kids." And I'm thinking, so because I had kids, it's kind of like made my sexuality more bearable,
Mm.
you know.
Right.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
always say to him, I said, "I'm not ashamed of who I am. You tried to drum that into my head when I was younger, but now
Mm.
I'm an adult. I'm not dependent on you anymore." But then when you're
Mm.
with a partner and then the partner's got internalized homophobia, kind of sitting there thinking, in the 20th, in this day and age, you know.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I think some people never really get over it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Absolutely. And the people are on their life journeys at different spectrums.
Mm,
And I think that is
mm.
also very important to recognize that. And sometimes that can make relationships very difficult to work, especially I like
Mm.
it's very difficult for someone who's very out and open and living freely to be with someone who's closeted. Like it because and
Then I
especially
try and explain to them that we were all
yeah.
there. I was in the closet, for like
Right.
5, 10 years when I was living at home. It's only when I now
Th-
left home that I now said, listen, 19, I pay my own rent. You don't give me money. This is who I
Mhm.
am. So we were
mm.
there. We were there. We've had similar journeys.
Thank you so much, Odi and Regina, for enriching this conversation, particularly what Regina said around internalized homophobia. That is an important component. I don't know if any of you had heard of this book or read it, a memoir of Sia Kumalo, You Have to Be Gay to Know God. The title of that, yeah, You Have to Be Gay to Know God. I'll just share the title in the chat room as well.
A
And
beautiful title.
yeah, I've not finished that book, but when they were recounting their journey, I could see the shame, the fear, the internalized homophobia, and the role of religion. And, because that's another institution that we don't touch around criminalization, or what's leading to all these anti-right issues that we're having. And they were saying, they kind of became avoidance, like running from relationship. But like that's hurtful because, like we say, bruises don't always show. But when we talk about survivors, sometimes too we need, and it's not excusing, but if we are talking about restoration and regenerative relationship, we need to see what's happening to those who harm us or hurt us. What are we enabling ourselves and what is happening to us in terms of our own agency and how we see life and relationships. But what I love about that book is the self-awareness of this person, Sia, like in the story, to unpack what is going on for me to be acting this way. And that internalized homophobia is part of it. And that's the space where shame resides as well. So without further ado, let me move to the final question so I can give Ade the floor. And what I want us to touch on now is moving beyond survivor. And after listening to so many stories of harm, survival, courage, and resilience, I would like to end with a hopeful question for us. What gives us hope in terms of moving from what had happened to us to now we are thriving? And how do you think we as individuals, as community can love differently, build healthier relationships, and create space where people no longer have to choose survival over safety? Is there something in that line that you've already reflected on that you would love to share with us today?
I mean, for me, what gives me hope is the fact that we are also having this conversation today. It's something that ignites lots of hope for me because for a very long time, like intimate partner violence within LGBTIQ plus communities, especially in Nigeria, lived in silence, like no one talked about it. Like I mentioned, the thing that prompted me to do the research was that there was no information around intimate partner violence for queer persons in Nigeria. And I think that it was the survivors were often carrying the experiences alone. And like I mentioned, sometimes everyone afraid that they wouldn't be believed or worried that speaking could expose them to even more harm. And so, but I think that conversations like this, it's helping people to identify and say, hey, I went through that as well. And some people don't even know that what they are going through is also intimate partner violence. And so for when conversations like this are happening, people are able to identify to say, oh, this is what I'm going through. Oh, this is intimate partner violence. Right. And I think that because we're choosing something different today, we're choosing to listen, we're choosing to learn, we're choosing to talk about it. We're also choosing to, well, hopefully we're choosing to care for one another more intentionally. I hope that that's what we're choosing to do going forward. That gives me hope, but I think that it's also very important for me to also give a shout out to the people who participated in this research because that also gave me hope. Because I know that sharing experiences of abuse requires courage for you to like relive those moments and telling those stories, like being able, like, because I had maybe for persons who didn't join the first series, I interviewed a couple of persons who had experienced intimate partner violence where they shared. Okay, so when I did the research, was just a random couple of questions online where people responded anonymously. And then when I wanted to dig further into experiences, I had to reach out to people who are willing to speak with me. Like I put out a call for survivors who are willing to have an interview, a sit down, a chat to kind of share their experiences. And that is what shaped the music and the book. And so I really sincerely applaud their courage for sitting with me, sharing those stories, reliving those crazy moments, especially because I mean when um you're living in Nigeria where just being queer can be crazy and can make you feel unsafe, and being able to willing to share those experiences. I mean, it was anonymized anyway, but just having that courage to share those stories and experiences was I find that very courageous. And I think that that is what made the entire project possible. And I hope that we continue to honor that courage by continuing to have conversations like this long after today. I think that that is what would make even more people have more courage to also speak up. Um, I think you also asked about what I think about loving differently. For me,
Yeah.
I don't imagine perfect relationships. I mean, no one is perfect, right? But at least I just imagine relationships where people remain fully themselves,
So far away.
where love doesn't have to, like, you don't have to be silent for peace to reign. Like, you don't, like,
Mhm.
disagreement shouldn't become intimidation. Like, your boundaries should be respected and not punished. Like, when you say
Mhm.
no, it shouldn't be something that threatens your relationship or
Mhm.
threatens
Mhm.
a love that you have. And, or when you say I'm hurting, it shouldn't be met with someone trying to defend their actions. It should be met with curiosity. Why are you hurting? What can I do to make it better? Like, I feel like those are some of the conversations or some of the ways that I think we can love differently, that it can help. And of course, our communities here, we also have a responsibility, because healthy relationships would never exist in isolation. We need communities where survivors are believed. That's the most important thing. Like, people should be believed when they speak up and say this has happened. And one of the funny things that um someone shared in the research was that one of the things they were afraid to speak up was the fact that the partner who was abusive was someone who was known to be calm and gentle in the community. And so people generally just assumed that they were the loud person, they were the outgoing person. And so it's like sometimes when you know somebody, you know them. I think someone put this in the right perspective, that the way we experience people as friends, as family members, can be very much different as the way their partners experience them. And so
Yeah.
when someone says to you that your brother is abusing me sexually or physically, people would tend to go, no, I know my brother. That is not true. There is no way. But it is very possible, because the way people experience partners is also different from the way your brother might be your brother is different from the way they are as a partner to their partner. And so I think that it's very important that as communities we believe survivors. And that is the only way that accountability is possible. And we must not humiliate people when they also share their experiences without being judgmental. Like, why did you stay for so long? When did this start happening? Oh my God. Like, so why didn't you say something all this while? At the point when they decide to speak, we must also encourage them without humiliating them, without being judgmental. We must ensure that people who are seeking help are seen as strengths rather than failures for taking so much time to speak up. And I think that is also very important for us to check in on one another, not just when relationships have ended, or when I know when people will say things like, this one have stopped posting about, like, I don't see post of him and his partner anymore. Let me go and do investigation and find out what's going on. I think that is also important for us to check in with friends, even when people are posting happy
Yes.
things, lovely photos, because sometimes we don't see the full picture of things online. Relationships may be going crazily, but people are posting happy stories or memories that they made from a couple of months back. And it's important that we keep checking on our friends. But I hope that one thing of hope today also is that we will stop measuring people's love by how much they're willing to endure.
Endure.
Yeah.
Exactly, because
Endurance.
yeah, A lot of
That's the learned
people
behavior from our
tell
parents.
you, yeah,
Just
that
manage, just
yeah, just
manage.
manage, just pull through, just it's a phase, it will go through, or the extreme, well, maybe not the extreme, but pray
Mm,
about it and all of
mm,
that. Well, we need to
Mm.
start measuring love by how people feel safe to be honest. And even if it's honest with their partners, honest with their friends, honest with the people that they trust, just being honest to share what they are going through. But that can only happen if we create that environment where people can share honestly
yes,
what they are going through.
Yeah.
We also need to encourage people to set boundaries, people to grow,
yes,
people to remain
yes,
fully themselves. I can never undermine the aspect of people being fully themselves in relationships. Relationships that require you losing a part of yourself. I
mm,
mean, and then, I mean, there are common statements around compromise, sacrifices, and all of that. But some of those things, when they start to make you lose yourself, can also become breeding grounds for violence. Yeah, and but I also don't think that asking to be yourself in a relationship is asking too much, and I think that that's what love is meant to be. Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. And without adding anything to what you've said, I will invite Adewale Adedeji into the room to offer community reflection with us for the next 10 minutes.
Thank you. Thanks, Odi. Thanks, Toyin, for the powerful conversation. So I'm going to invite us to recenter ground because a lot's happened, last
Yes.
few moments actually. So invite everyone to feel your feet on the ground, connect with your body. If you need to stretch, do that and realign, come home to yourself. If I was to take something from what Odi was saying, there's this thing about coming home to ourselves, coming home to our power, integrating all aspects of who we are. So invite ourselves to do that. Oh, thank you. Um, yeah, so much wisdom in what you were both sharing, actually. And there's so many things I was taking from that. One was this thing around what scripts, what stories, what histories are we bringing into relationships? And then tied in with that, what scars, what wounds, and what bruises are we bringing into relationships?
yeah, yeah,
And I think that feels really, really significant. So, whilst wounds do occur in relationships, we also bring stuff into relationships as well. And I think it could be really, really powerful to honor and acknowledge that. The other piece that I'm taking away, and I think for me, that's actually the biggest piece, which is around community healing and the power of witnessing with compassion, with love, as opposed to shame. I'm thinking of the work of Brené Brown, and she says,
yes,
shame,
yes,
shame thrives on silence, secrecy, and judgment.
yeah, yeah,
And so imagine being in community, being with a friend, a family member, where we're breaking the silence by
mm,
sharing, we're not keeping it secret
mm,
and we're being witnessed with compassion and not judgment. And that can
mm,
be so, so powerful. And so for me, and I was hearing this as well, this is where that thriving kicks in
mm,
to be with benevolent witnesses
mm,
who honor, who acknowledge us.
mm,
There was something that Odi shared, which I wrote down actually, which was how much of ourselves are we willing to lose?
mhm,
So in that moment in
mhm,
relationship, how much of ourselves are we willing to lose? And what really struck me was more around when did I first start losing myself?
yes, yes,
Like what was the birthplace of this
absolutely.
story? And the reason that I say that was I was in a relationship, this was about 25 years ago. Friends around me told me that it was an abusive relationship. I'm like, no, it's fine. I've read the
Mm,
books. I'm
mm,
okay. It's
mm,
no big
mm,
deal. In my mind, I'm hoping that he would change, like he will
mm,
eventually see that I'm a good person. And it got so bad that I ended up having to leave the relationship, but it was really, really tough.
Mm.
And then 10 years later, I'd, therapy and all that kind of stuff, we met up. And he said to me, he said, the more you loved me, the more abusive I became because I didn't feel I deserved that love.
Mm.
And I was like, but you never said that to me. We never had that conversation. We never sat down. And he said, I just wasn't able to have the conversation. But for me, the big thing was I felt that's what I deserved.
The bare minimum. The bare minimum.
Exactly. I felt that's what I deserve. And that's what kept me there. This is what I deserve. This is what I saw my parents do, society. This is the norm. This is familiar. And so the work for me was really around understanding the scars and wounds I was bringing into relationships. Because the minute I understood that, the boundaries that Odi was talking about, 10,
Too.
the more I started to value me and go, actually, you know what? I deserve more
Don't
than
let
that. I'm
them
not
see
going to
you.
put myself there.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I kept myself there because I felt that's what I deserved.
Mm.
So for
Mm.
me, there is this piece around community. How can we be in community with people who will say, you know what, you deserve the best that life has got to give you. And right now, you might not feel it, but I'm here to reflect that back to you. And that's what I needed from my friends there. But what I got from them was judgment. How did you do that? Why are you in that? Which compounded the shame
Yes.
as opposed to being in community. So for me, what I'm really hoping is everyone here who is listening to this, who's going to be watching this, that we can cultivate the habit so that we become benevolent witnesses for anyone who is going through stuff like this. So that when they come to us, we might be thinking the why, but we don't bring that in. We go, no, they're human. They're human, they're in pain. And how can I be that compassionate friend right now? Because they're being really vulnerable and they're sharing something with me. Because for many of us, we grew up in homes, especially being queer, we grew up in homes where we were told this is the sin, it's not good enough. And so it builds in our mind.
Yes.
It builds and builds in our mind. So that what we need from people is to hold up that mirror and say, you're beautiful,
Mm.
you are worthy, you are loved, you belong, you're accepted. And that starts to give us the power to walk away from situations where we are not being honored.
Mm.
And so I will pause there.
Profound.
Thank you
Profound.
so much,
Thank you.
Ade. I'm here, then I'm like, yeah. Recognizing and reminding ourselves of our own value, of our own autonomy, of the need to do the inner work that requires of us as well to transform the culture of pain, of suffering in relationship that we've inherited and how we are raised. I really yeah. Because if all of us are doing this, even those patterns and way of showing up is abusive, if they are doing their own inner work, relationship will become different. Community will be different. We'll be more reciprocating in the way we love and show up for one another. And this is what I hope for all of us. And Adewale is my big brother and a board member of iAfrica as well. And I remember that part of the healing support he has given me is when things are not going well in relationships that I found myself, I asked to speak to him. And he listens, he asks what I need from him. And sometimes it's just one, question he will ask me that will make me recognize what I must do. Yeah, where I need to work on. And it's an ongoing journey for many of us, because this shit is deep. This shit is deep and it's layered. It's layered. And I just hope that we continue to build that inner pathway for our own healing and to find support within and for one another. Thank you so much, Ade. I would love to hear from the floor. Anyone who wants to share their experience or offer questions to the room for us to unpack. Odi is here. Ade is here as well. I will not be answering your questions today. I'm just facilitating this conversation. So you can also type it into the chat room if you rather put your question there. Also, I would love to use this moment to ask all of us, how are we still feeling in this moment? What's coming up for you? Are you okay? Please let us know. No judgment whatsoever.
I think Regina's hand was up.
Yeah.
Thank you, Regina. Please go ahead. I missed that.
Said, from what Odi was saying, what Adewale was saying, from Odi, I've spoken to sorry, wait a minute.
Hugs.
Goddess.
We're sending you a lot of hugs.
Thank you. I've spoken to Moon Goddess as well about some bits in my past, and I recognize patterns as well. I think for a very long time, with most of my relationships, I've realized that I have expectations. However, I go into relationship with people that cannot meet their expectations and feel like I'm brushing them up. I'm going to get them there. Like having a relationship with potential instead of this is not what you want. Why are you there? So I tend to form a bond. I'm kind of going into the rescuer syndrome thing, and it's comfortable for me because it's all I've ever known. So, listening to Adewale, I've realized I need to give myself compassion, sit down. If this is not what you want, you come out of it. I mean, as much as someone can abuse you, you also have to recognize that, listen, this is abuse. Is this how you want to live your life? Is this the way you want to go going forward? I mean, especially if it's a relationship where there are children involved or friends, family around, they can see what you're. There's an adage in Nigeria: what an older person can see standing up, we can't see sitting down. So most of the time, my community, I just make sure they're like 10, 20 years older than me in the queer community. They're like, giving me some pointers, as Moon Goddess said, in such a way that I will now come to the self-realization that, look, am I going to be replicating these patterns? Do I want to go through trauma all the time just to feel like I'm in a relationship? Do I see shame as valid? Because sometimes you've got to look at it. Are we perpetuating negativity because that's all we've ever known? Is that how we're classically conditioned as African children? Because you do something and it's like, this is my child. After all I've done for you. So you're thinking to yourself, you brought me into the world, but now everything I do is after all I've done for you. So if you didn't want me in the first place, why have me then? So these are all like internal questions that sometimes you sit down and you ask yourself, where did I go wrong? I didn't ask to be here. But then they're going on in your mind and then it translates into other relationships, whether it's friendships, whether it's erotic relationships, whether it's, and from Adewale, I've realized that you've got to give yourself grace because how many times are you going to go through that cycle of, oh, the abuse is okay, let me manage it, and not spotting it? Because if it's happened once or twice, the third time it's a decision. The first and second time you can claim negligence, but the third time it's a decision. That's where you want to be. So it's either you're going to stay alone and do the inner healing, the inner work, recognize your traumas. A lot of people say, oh, I can't get into a relationship till I've healed. You can be in a relationship and heal at the same time as being in a relationship, as long as you're aware of your traumas, you're aware of where you're coming from, and you articulate that at the beginning and say, listen, sometimes if you say something's like a trigger to me and I'm gone, a ghost, or this is what happens. As long as the person, you're carrying the person along and they know that this is what's happening, or you just say, listen, I'm not ready to go into a relationship because I haven't done the inner work. I've not healed yet. So I just need to get to where I need to get to for me. And then, maybe we can be. But
Thank
this
you.
is an insightful session. Thank you so much. I've learned quite a lot from everyone.
Yeah, thank you. And from what you were saying, it occurred to me to leave this question with everyone as well. I'm still hoping that more people will contribute to this conversation. We have just 15 more minutes to wrap up. And okay, I've seen Victoria contribution. I will read it out now. But before then, what comes to mind from what Regina is saying is to leave a question for all of us as an offering to ask ourselves, what's that one thing we want to change about the way we love? Yeah. That's not about whether we've been abused or we're abusing. It's about what do we want to change? One thing we are committed to within our own self, within the patterns we've seen, within the patterns of others that have affected us is important. What's that one thing you wish to change going forward in the way you show up in relationship and the way you love? And Victoria said, I can't say I'm okay because I've asked how everybody is doing. This was really thought-provoking. I recognize my own holdbacks and baggages have really affected how I relate with my romantic and even platonic relationship. I now know I need to really do a lot of work in building healthy relationship. The speakers really helped open my eyes. I need to be aware of the traumas and do the work of healing without causing pain to others. And I also see how abuse can be in many forms. I may not even recognize it, or I may not even recognize it, or I might try to rationalize it. Sorry. I should definitely see it, name it, and either solve or leave that situation. Thank you for sharing that. And I hope as I read this, you are beholding yourself in compassion, love, and you are offering yourself a lot of grace for even this boldness to share this with us. If Ade or Odi has something to say, please go ahead with what, especially with what Regina shared with us and what Victoria has shared in the chat room. Ade, over to you, then Odi.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? I'm not sure whether it's my internet.
Very,
Okay,
very,
cool.
very clear, loud
Great.
and clear.
Um, I was thinking of an activity I would normally do on a workshop where we would look at victims and perpetrators. And we would often say that, two sides of the same coin. And so going back to what Victoria put into chat, I really like that in terms of us also recognizing where we might be perpetrators, knowingly, unknowingly as well. I think for me, that can start to help me have even more compassion for myself because there have been times where I have been that perpetrator and it comes from that place of wounding, my own wounding, um, my own hurts, my own scars, my own bruises, where I then end up wounding someone else. So that ex that I mentioned, when he said to me, the more you loved me, the more I couldn't stand it. And that was why I became abusive. For me, that was like a light bulb moment because I thought, oh, because I thought it was going to be something like really nasty, something really mean. But when he said that, I was like, oh, actually, I actually feel more compassion for you right now when you sharing that with me because I've been in that situation too. So I really find it powerful for us to also go, where have I also been a perpetrator? Maybe not in the same way, but how does that show up for me?
Yeah, thank you very much, Ade. I love the perspective of also the self-reflectiveness of thinking where we have perpetrated. I think that in the research that I carried out initially, it was, I think one of the questions also seek to find out if respondents of the research were not just responding as persons who have survived intimate partner violence, but also there was a question that asked, have you perpetrated any of this? And lots of the respondents also acknowledged that, yes, they have also done one of two of incidences of intimate partner violence where they were the perpetrators. And I think that is also something of paramount importance that we also need to keep having conversations around. Another thing that I wanted to share a little bit of, touch a little bit on, it's also where do we draw the line around a situation that can be redeemed or a lost cause, right? Like people change, people evolve, like how is the person willing to do the work? Is there a commitment to work, to changing, and how do you allow yourself to go through all of that, especially if it's if I mean, and Regina also mentioned when someone has done something once, twice, three times, it's like that is becoming a decision, right? But when it's first time, maybe mistake, they apologize, and then it doesn't happen again. They're remorseful about it, or they show that, oh, this is something, or they also realize that, oh, I'm coming to this relationship with some traumas that I need to heal. I need to go to therapy. I need to seek support from in the various forms that I had mentioned initially, faith, music, wherever like support comes from, friends. But how are you willing to also identify that and change? And if the abusive partner is doing the work, do you say that there's room for redemption there, or do we just move on and to protect our peace? How do we show up in those moments? It can be really dicey, but I'm hoping that those are moments that we can also allow grace, but also not at the expense of losing yourselves. If it becomes at the expense of losing yourself or even causing you more harm like this, it's okay to take a break and revisit that relationship at the point where you think that redemption has happened, right? It's not, you don't have to stay in that situation also because the person is working through the process. Because if working through the process is still causing some sort of harm to you, then I think that is also fine and okay to take a pause, reevaluate, and say, hey, let's pause and come back to this. Yeah, it's okay to take breaks in relationships. You're muted, one goddess.
I've I've been carried along with this conversation. I didn't even remember that. Thank you. So I was saying thank you for landing where you are. And based on what you have said, I just want to now say what our part 3 will be for this conversation. And we've already unpacked in our part 1 when harm does not arrive loudly, understanding invisible abuse, silence, and emotional control. Then today, the conversation is around fear, stigma, and survivor, queer relationships within criminalization and social isolation. And then, I need to repeat that. Fear, stigma, and survivor, queer relationship within criminalization, shame, and social isolation. I think that's what I said. And something in my head is saying, I might not have been saying that particular title very well. Forgive me if I'm wrong a bit. And the third one is going to now move to softness after survivor, healing, accountability, community care, and reimagining queer love. I think that's very important for us to land within a space of talking about healing pathways. So that's what part 3 will do for us. And I hope you will join us for that. We've chosen a date before, but I'm rethinking the date now because we would love to have Ade join us, and he's not available on the date we have chosen. And Odi, I hope you are willing to rethink the date for us to have everybody, including Amari, join us to land this conversation, to build holistic pathways together for what we must do to heal ourselves as a community, to heal ourselves as a collective, and to heal ourselves as individuals. This is how the Ubuntu of interconnectedness, love, and togetherness that we envision can thrive. Thank you so much, everyone who had contributed to this conversation thus far. I want to ask for any final message for everyone, or something you want to close with, Odi, and then give the room back to Ade to close for us. And once it does that, you won't hear my voice anymore. I'll just play one of Odi's many amazing songs for us to say goodbye to each other and people can leave when they want. Odi, then Ade.
Thank you. Final.
Oh, sorry. Somebody had just raised their hand. Manny,
Hi everyone, good evening.
good evening.
Yes, thank you. I've paid attention to the conversation so far. And Odi, thank you again for the invite. Thank you to everyone, Mr. Ade, Regina, and you as well, Dr. Toyin. So it's someone that has been in such a dynamic relationship where uh, intimate partner violence ensued, right? And I was mostly on the receiving end. And then going by everything we've heard here today, I'm just going to give some, I'm going to say sort of like encouragement, sort of like how do we move on from this type thing? Um, Readily so, it takes a long time for someone to come out of that kind of headspace. And for everyone, the healing journey is pretty different. Depends on how much he affected you, the amount of impact he had, if it also went as ahead to isolate you from people that actually mattered to you and, kind of left you alone in the, so to speak. I would say one of the reasons why we're so uh, imbibed by heteronormative practices and all that is because of the representation we saw growing up, just like Odi mentioned. So one of the things I would say would be like how we as a people and a community could move forward from this is to also show forth healthy representation of what healthy love and relationships look like to the people around us. Would be uh, how we display love. It doesn't necessarily have to be something you do in the public or whatever. It's just people can just see you, people close to you could see how you relate to your partner, if there are issues, how you settle them, how you go about things like that. And that's a very comfortable and easy portrayal of how healthy love can be. It doesn't necessarily have to be with intimate relationships, it could also be with friends, you know, giving ourselves a bit more grace. I'm still going to go back down to the fact that we did not have proper queer representation coming out, right? Growing up, especially living in Nigeria. So we should take it upon ourselves as the people that ensure that no matter how little with our circle, with people around us, we're also giving healthy queer representation when it comes to work-life balance, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to friendships in general, on how healthy representation and how healthy it is to be like a queer person, the kind of representation we give to people around us. I think that would also be our little way to, help each and every one of us in the community. So thank you.
Thank you so much for this contribution. Yeah, I'm just clocking it. Thank you. And with that, before I hand it back to Adewale, I want to say that I've caught myself with my copy and pasting mistake to restate the title for today's conversation is Fear, Stigma, and Survivor, exploring how criminalization, shame, and social isolation shape queer relationships and impact survivors. So I've done justice to correcting myself. So based on what Manny offered us, very, very reflective. I am sitting with that. I want Adewale to continue from that and offer us closing remarks. Yeah.
Well, I thought Odi was going to say something. Are you done, Odi? You
Oh,
want to say?
sorry. Odi first. Yeah.
I
Odi
mean,
is just
I
laughing
wasn't,
there.
I wasn't going to argue with the facilitator. But yeah, I was going to close with a very simple statement to encourage everyone to thrive, stay happy, be very intentional about self-care, prioritize yourself and all of that. And then when Manny shared a little bit of that, I also just wanted to add a little voice to that to also encourage that sometimes in the quest to kind of like portray positive relationships and healthy relationships for queer persons, it kind of put a strain on people who take on that mantle to portray the positive aspects of queerness and healthy living. And sometimes when they are going through things, then they are also afraid to voice it out because they have become the pillars of the community, the models of the community. And so I think that it's also very important for us to, I understand what you're saying. I'm not saying that what you're saying is wrong. It's also very important for us that we continue to show positive queerness, healthy living, healthy loving relationships, and all of that. But if we can only show up as our positive selves and healthy, and we cannot control what the other person is going to show up with in our lives, and how sometimes we show up positively and end up as victims, right? Or survivors. But let's not put any strain on anybody to be a pillar of the community in a way that they are also scared of sharing their painful experiences. Let's also always create room and show grace that everyone is human and everybody can experience anything. And like I shared, believe survivors when they share their experiences, be the support system. And I think that that's the only way that we can continue to thrive as a healthy community. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Over to you, Adi.
Thank you. Thanks, Odi. Thank you. You reminded me of a therapy session I had earlier this week with my therapist, and we were exploring navigating tensions in relationships, like in friendships. So, say you and I are friends, and then we have a disagreement. The way I saw that modeled when I was growing up was we ghost each other or we just don't talk about it. Like we meet next week and we just pretend that conversation never happened. Like that's what I grew up with.
Yeah.
And in therapy, we were
Definitely.
exploring actually how do we have that difficult conversation where I go,
Conversations,
you know, Odi, last week when we met, you said X and I felt really hurt and I'd love us to talk about it. So going back to what Manny was saying, for me, that is healthy relationship. People who have those moments of rupture, but they're able to meet it with compassion, grace, honesty, rather than ghosting or bypassing it. That is a healthy relationship. So that is my hope for all of us, that we start to cultivate the skills to have conversations around those tension moments, actually. So even going back to our theme for today, in that moment where there was the first signal of that, you know, this is not going well, how can one of us engage in that conversation rather than minimizing it, pretending it never happened? Like, how can I have that conversation with someone to go, you know, last week when you spoke to me that way, I felt really hurt about that, and I'd love us to have a conversation about it. How can we nip it in the bud rather than it sort of just growing? So that's my hope for all of us, my wish for all of us. May the universe grant us the wisdom, insight to lean in and engage and have these conversations and be compassionate towards ourselves. And with that, I mean, what I really actually want to do, I'm conscious there are 13 of us on this call. Most people we've not been able to see, which is fine. But I would really love people to type into chat one word, one or two words to capture how you're feeling as you leave this space. So if you've not said anything, that's fine. But in chat, yeah, one or two words. How are you leaving this space this evening? And it doesn't need to be an uplifted word. Your word is your word. That is, you know, how are you feeling? So let's just honor this space. So one or two words in chat as we leave. How are you doing? How are you doing? Because I'm conscious this has been it's been a heavy topic, and we just want to make sure that everyone is feeling resourced as you leave. So don't be shy. One or two words. And if you don't want to put in a word, put in an emoji, put in one of those icons. You know, there are loads. If you go to, yeah, put something in. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you for getting the ball rolling. Yeah, who else? Who else? Thank you. Who else? As we finish off, either a word or an icon. How are you doing? Thank you, Jennifer. Oh, I love that one. Thank you. I've not seen that before, actually. Thank you. Oh, oh dear. Yeah.
I love the
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you. Is it Astore? Thank you for that. Thank you. Well, I'm conscious of time. We've gone past our time. So go well, everyone. Look after yourselves and see you all soon.
Thank you so much. Bye for
Thank you,
now.
everyone.
Thank
Thank you. If you
you.
are still staying behind, there's one more of this song to
Okay.
play as we close. But yeah, thank you all for today.
Thank you, everyone.
You didn't shout, you didn't beg, you just went quiet, and something shifted. I felt it before I understood it. Your voice sounds different when you say my name, like you already leave, but your body's still there. I stand too long, waiting for something when no day comes. I stand too long, too long. You look at me like you're measuring words, no witness for waiting break for me. My chest tight, but I know talk, I know, but knowing, no mean say I ready. I stand too long till my body still wanting me. I stayed too long. I didn't live loud, I didn't live proud. I just stopped breathing well. To go.